Hello there. Thanks for allowing us into your homes. Thanks for all the emails, the text messages, and keep them coming. And it's wonderful to hear your thoughts on His Word Made Flesh. And for those of you who've been inspired by the stories, who've been touched, those of you whose lives have been transformed because of the stories, my prayer for you is that God will keep you grounded and that you'll never derail from this new life as you discover purpose and using your pain to heal others. Because you've been through, you've walked the path, you know what it is. Thank you and God bless. Today we'll be talking with Pastor Manzino, Egbuwoku. The name sounds Brazilian. Well, we'll try to find out from him if he's Brazilian or not. He's the senior pastor of Christ City. You know, I've come to discover that when you are yielded, you want to give your all. Through the Facebook, he's touching so many lives. You'll get to hear his story and how he got to be to the point where he is today. See you after this time out. Pastor Manzino.
That's right.
Are you Brazilian?
Well, sounds like it, but I'm really not Brazilian.
Okay.
Nigerian.
Why the name Manzino? What part of Nigeria and what's the real meaning?
Manzino, that's a name from Delta. Actually.
Delta?
Yeah, Manzino. It actually means we have arrived.
Okay.
We have arrived. On a fuller version, you could call it Ewo Manzino.
Ewo Manzino.
Which means goodness has come.
I think I prefer goodness has come.
A good thing has come.
Yes.
So it's Delta, it's Isoko.
You're welcome. I'm honored to have you
I am
today.
honored to be here too.
How is church the Christ City? Why did you name it the Christ City?
Why did I name it the Christ City? Does anybody really give a name? It's like saying, how is your church?
Yes.
Nobody really owns a church. Nobody really gives it a name. What happens is that you go through a burning bush experience and God gives you a rod and sends you out to go and fight with Pharaoh.
Yes.
And that's what happened to me.
So, the burning bush experience. So, how did yours come?
Wow.
And how long did it span? Double-barreled question. So let's start. How was the journey?
How was the journey? Very interesting one. Well, mine is a very interesting story.
Yes.
A little over 20 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Just about, 20 years ago, sometime, 87. I was in the University of Ibadan at the time. I had gotten...
Are you an architect by profession?
I am an architect.
Yes.
With a civil engineering background.
Yes.
Yeah, I had gotten involved with secret confraternities in the university and rose to be the head of one of the confraternities. Of course, you can imagine that we were into all sorts of things. Yes. It was a very interesting life.
So you thought?
So I thought.
Yes.
But it's a case study on its own, that type of life. Why people get in there and what they do in there. But I got involved. A lot of it is peer pressure, of course. Got involved with one of the confraternities and, like I said, quickly rose to be the head, moving all around the place with guns.
Why did you rise to be the head quickly? Is it that you were very versed in all the activities, or is it that you were very strong and powerful and fearful?
I think it's a combination of...
and for your size.
Well, I wasn't always as big as this. I was tall,
yes,
but I was slim. But I think it's a combination of quite a number of things. I was very daring. I was also
Bold
very bold.
and courageous.
You have to be bold.
I can see that.
You have to be bold. I used to move around with grenades on my body. I used to move, I could blow up, the whole place, a wide coverage of area. But I think, a lot of that. And also a lot of the fact that, one also felt that, you see, when you get involved with some of these confraternities, you find out that, if you don't rise up quickly, you'll be bullied. You'll be taken advantage of. And so you have to make the choice. Am I going to stay as a boy here and get bullied all the time, or am I going to rise up quickly?
Yes.
And so you take some bold moves. And I was there for almost 3 years.
Can you tell us the different kind of things they would do in a cult? Is it possible?
Oh, yes. Basically, what's the underlying principle of some of these cults is that the university setting, you get in there with the intention that you're making contacts. Some of them let you know that, some of the big people in the society are all a part of this, and, you finish from the university, you're going to get a job easily or get contracts easily and so on. So it has a very materialistic, principle about it. Of course, secondly, is power also. Or if you have political interests,
To help
you can latch on that, and you'll get a lot of friends. You have friends in the forces. You have friends everywhere. It's all about making friends.
Were they true at all? Did you find?
Well, I will be honest with you. It is true. It is true. It is true that a lot of people in a lot of places are involved with a lot of things, and one of the mysteries of what goes on around us, and thank God for Jesus Christ.
You were in this thing throughout your university days?
Yes, I actually had to leave the university. That became another phase in my life.
You were rusticated or was discovered?
Well, I think God helped me. I would say God helped me now, because that's not to encourage people that are doing it. God may not help you that way. But my own case was that, I almost got to a place where I was to be executed on the firing squad.
How did that happen?
And that was a landmark in my life. One of the major landmarks of my life. Well, we had had a, I will try and careful with some of my words.
Yes.
But at the same time, try and say as much as it's possible to help somebody else out there who needs to know that, there's a wrong direction. The Bible says there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end of that route is death.
Yes.
And that was the route I was in. So I wasn't rusticated, but I left.
Okay.
I left because, like I said, we had gotten to a point, we had a major situation in the cult, for which there was people from all over the country. I mean, these cults have branches even outside the country, in the UK, in the US. I mean, once when I was the head of the hit squad, I got instructions from the UK. In fact, some of them are now pastors with me.
Hold the thoughts. Hold the thought. Don't go away. When we come back, Pastor Manzino will tell us how it was and how he got to the point where he was almost executed. But I tell you something, there's a season and a time for everything. Even if you're going in the wrong direction, when the time comes, God will orchestrate a crisis and you will make that turn around, whether you like it or not. See you after this time out. A tribute by his colleagues and business partners in this book describe him in glowing terms. Entrepreneur par excellence.
At the age of 6, she will fly Akala. I will go out to sell, come back before going to school.
A consummate entrepreneur.
My uncle asked me to come in the evening. I went with my senior brother and they counted 200 naira and gave me. That was in 1977. And I asked him, what will I do with this money? He said, well, that's my starting up capital.
And a business How do you start business with 200 naira? Mr. Cosmas Maduka will tell us. From trials to triumph, the cautionary story.
We will hawk bread morning, noon, and night. That's why I have a patch in the middle of my head.
Are you serious again?
It is not anything from from family. It was of constant hawking of bread for like almost 4 years.
There's so much. Join us. You're welcome back. Pastor, you said you left the university.
Yes. Oh yes, I left the university, I think this was in 88 or 89, yeah. And that was because we had gotten involved with some, cult activities. It was really bad. Somebody was left for dead. At the end of the day, it was very bloody and really, really bad. People came from other parts of the country because, some of these confraternities are quite widely spread. They are widely spread, some of them, particularly the older ones.
And you said there was a time you were taking, at a point you took instructions from abroad.
Oh yeah.
Still the same cult or
still the same thing, because people graduate, they move out into society, and they get into places of power and influence in the society, and sometimes, there are issues they want to be resolved, and they walk through some of these fraternities. Okay. So that was the situation. We got into a very bloody situation, and some people from all over the country. It was a big meeting, and it's usually held in the bush, right in the middle of the bush, with bonfires, with people singing songs, and people drunk with what they don't even know they are drinking, concoctions that are...
Who brings the concoctions?
Oh, these are very interesting questions. And supposed to be a lot of the secrets of some of these things, but the bottom line is that they are definitely not godly concoctions. They are made by officials within the place.
And you don't know what they even are?
You don't even know what they are. I mean, there's a particular post in the fraternity I was in that, there's only one official who even knows what it's about. And they mix it with all sorts of things. And, when you come for these meetings, you must drink. Usually we are all decked on what we call the regalia. And the regalia is, your black hood.
Yes.
Your black,
like the Dracula stuff.
Well, you have a hood, really.
Yes.
There's a hood, you have your dress. I don't know what it's turned into nowadays, but those days,
yes.
Yeah, that's really, and you come, because, you're meeting with some of the people, even within some of these fraternities, you don't want to know who
belongs there.
They don't want to let their identity out, because you still don't know who is there.
So you're dealing with people sometimes you don't even know.
You're dealing with people sometimes
because even when they
know.
come for the meeting, they're...
Sometimes, but there's some of them that are bold enough, and they don't really care, and they make known their presence, and that was it. We got into that situation. This gentleman was left for dead, and fortunately, I think this is where a little bit of good upbringing comes, because I came from a reasonably good home. I didn't have need to be in some of these things. Like I said, it's peer pressure a lot of times. And
sometimes curiosity.
Curiosity.
Wanting to know what is in there.
I agree with you. Curiosity. That's another good reason why you just want to know what's in this thing.
When you're telling it, is that you know what you're talking about.
Very adventurous.
Yes.
I have a son who's very adventurous, and I keep watching him. I'm going to help you to be adventurous for God now, not be like me. So, anyways, this was it, and this fellow, who happened to be the head of the cult before me, happened to be what they call a coup. And I was to be replaced as the new head. And it became very bloody, because he resisted with his people and all of that. Really bloody. I mean, it was a stabbing exercise for those who didn't know how to stab. It was horrible. It was a bonfire exercise for those who had not seen flesh melt before. It was really bad, and you know, one of the goriest things that you ever want to see. But anyways, this fellow, one or two of us decided, look, we couldn't leave him here. And so we had to take him to the hospital. This was 4 a.m., 3 a.m. or so in the morning at Ibadan. We got to the hospital and the doctors, they refused him. They said, hey, look, because we had to concoct a story that some armed robbers attacked him and we saw him on the road. I mean, that was the only way, short of leaving him there,
Yes.
which was the most sensible
So
thing,
in
reasonable
spite of
thing.
the whole cult thing, you still had that humane thing.
That's right, you know, and I thank God for that, you know, because that saved his life. That saved his life.
Do you still see him today?
I had seen him once or twice, but you see, after a while, when you become a Christian, you have to cut off.
Separate.
Yeah, you have to make a bold decision that I have to cut off from things that are not going to benefit me in a godly way.
Yes.
And so that's why, I mean, I'm kind of very divorced from my past, really. If I'm not doing this interview, it's so long ago that, you know, but I thank God, because one of the things God has used it to do is to help to bring
People
a
out
lot
of
of
the
people
cult.
that have been involved in, I mean, I think one of my finest and the best type of ministry I like engaging in is this. I like to see people that are involved in all sorts of things. They're drunkards, they're cultists, or they are, you know, prostitutes. I have so many, in fact, almost on a daily basis. I meet with them, and somehow God has given me a lot of grace.
You know, because
to help
having
them.
been a cult person, you
Yes.
know, because the thing is that most people go into it without even knowing what they're going into.
That's correct.
And because you've walked the path, when you tell them, look, I've walked this path and
That's
there's really
right.
nothing
That's
in there.
right. That's right.
I think you stand a better chance of convincing them
Oh, yes,
than
I-
people who didn't even.
I saw so many souls won to the Lord, just as I still do, just telling my testimony, because, I mean, that's just the beginning for me. I left the country, got involved with drugs. I got involved with the drug syndicate.
You were very adventurous.
Very, very fact, you know, why, it's very interesting. Some people may be where I am today, because when they called us, eventually we got to the hospital, dropped the guy and ran away. And so we called the guy's parents, and the guy's father said, call us when he's dead. Apparently he had been a real problem to them, you know. But the hospital was very good and to take care of him or whatever. But 2 days after, I was picked up by the police, eating somewhere, and they just swooped up on me, and I was termed the ringleader. And, you know, very interestingly, I mean, I didn't really have too much of a hand, but I have to take responsibility.
God
for
was
my
waiting for
falling.
you somewhere.
He was waiting, you know. So they locked us up, started picking people up one by one, and they threatened us. They told us then, after another 3 days, that, the guy's dead, and we're all going to be executed. And you don't want to be in that position. It's easy to talk and feel like I'm a big boy and all of that, but when the chips are down and you stare at the face of death and life, and you really don't have anything. Now I can look down and say, if I drop dead now, I'm going to heaven. And I have no fears about that.
Hold the thought, hold the thought, hold the thought. When we come back, Pastor Manzino will tell us what he's doing today. See you after this time. Glad you're still here. Pastor, at what point in the whole of this journey did you now say, I've had enough?
Okay. Well, for me, it was while I was in the UK. I had, like I said, been involved with drug
Drugs.
syndicates at this time, and I had reached the end of my rope because a couple of my friends had begun to be arrested and all of that. And it got very close to home, where I knew that the British police were monitoring me at the time from what we heard. And I decided, no, this is not what my life is about. Because I remember a friend of mine had just gotten 18 years, and I said, no, I'm not going to do this. But then, you know, it went from bad to worse. I actually did live on the streets for a while. Like I tell, I have a ministry now towards some of this.
We'll come to that.
Boys.
We'll come to that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll come to that.
What?
What was your father's reaction? The cult thing, the drug thing, your mom?
My father practically disowned me. So we stopped talking for a while. Naturally, he was very disappointed. after the mafia situation, after praying to God and saying, God, I'll never tell a lie again. And then you're getting yourself involved in all of this. And it was quite an expensive school I was in. And so he gave up and said, look, that's it. My mother was there. I mean, my mother was always praying.
You know, women.
I thank God for mothers, because my mother really prayed. She went on a 40 days. In fact, it coincided, the 40 days she did coincided with my salvation. I gave my life to Jesus Christ April 1991, and she was fasting. Just
How about your
before that
brothers
period.
and sisters? How are you the oldest child?
I am the second oldest of 8, and yes, I was schooling at the same time with my older sister in the UK. She moved to the US, and after I had given my life to Christ, she said I was a nightmare. You know, you end up not remembering these things, because I was stoned 24 hours of the day on all sorts of things and so on. And I got to the point where I was about to commit suicide.
I attempted suicide myself.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, so we have some things in
Yes,
common.
yes. I tried mine with Valium and alcohol.
I wanted to cut this. I hear that when you cut your...
You bleed to death.
Yeah, you bleed, put it in warm water, tried all sorts of things, tried to overdose of some drugs.
But why?
Well, I thought I had reached the end of my rope. You know, suicide is really hopelessness.
Yes, it's true.
When you get to a place where you feel there's no redemption.
I was going through a major scandal and controversy.
And
I didn't think I
bottom line
was.
is hopelessness. You just
Yes.
feel, that's it, there's no hope.
And there's so many people walking in the
Oh,
streets
yes.
like that.
Why? It's hopelessness. And once you have that hope, which is what Jesus does to you, and he does change your life.
Because you
know,
have to hit rock bottom. You have to hit.
Sometimes, yeah, for some stubborn people like us. Yes, you know, sometimes when you're stubborn, God has to bring you down to rock bottom.
The Lord told me I was too prideful.
Yeah.
And I was too full of myself.
Yeah.
I had to go through that scandal for him to show me that my reputation meant absolutely nothing
That's
to
right,
him.
that's right. Godly sorrow sometimes does bring you down.
Yes.
In fact, sometimes we pray like that, and God, deal with this person.
So
He
what
won't kill
stopped you?
What stopped me was 2 things I can remember right now. One was as a younger boy in the secondary school, I remember a young lady preaching to me. I don't even know who she is up till this moment. But she preached to me, and she simply talked to me about heaven and hell. Some people will be mystified about what you talk about, like in Facebook. I started a group called Heaven is Real and So is Hell. You know, I have such a very interesting revelation about heaven and hell. And it started with this young lady. She talked about, very simply, I don't know who this dear sister is, she's still around, God bless her. You know, talked about heaven and hell and the reality of Christ. And I always tell people, the gospel that we preach is mysterious. The Bible says, great is the mystery of godliness. You can't come to the Lord with your normal senses.
Yes, it's true.
It takes God himself revealing himself to you, because it's spiritual. And in any case, I said right there, as I was another day, on this particular day, I was going to jump from up. I thought that was it. I was just going to jump and finish it once and for all. And I remembered this lady who told me about this, and I thought to myself, you'll go to hell. And this hell is forever. Prior to that, you know, when we get stoned, we start saying, you know, Bob Marley's in hell. Or I don't know who.
Hell will be sweeter.
You say hell will be sweeter. There's no partying in heaven. That heaven is going to be a dry place. All lies and wickedness of the devil, really. And, you know, I said to myself, if this thing is true, I'm not ready to take this chance. And just right then, a lady walked in again into my room and saw what I was going to do and said, you don't want to do that. Ironically, she was Muslim. Very interesting the way God works. Ironically, she was Muslim, and she just told me, Marley, it's not right, and blah, blah, blah. People love you, people care about you, and so on and so forth. And I stopped that. Somehow or the other, I got a letter from a friend who was Muslim. She had been my ex-girlfriend at the time, or she was my girlfriend at the time. She's now, of course, was my ex later on. And she said to me she had given her life to Jesus Christ just about a couple of days after this experience. And she was now born again, and she had peace beyond human understanding. And that is where my quest began. What does she mean? At first, I was very upset at her. She tried to tell me that nothing is going to happen again. We're not more going to do anything again. This is an excuse to, and I was just upset with her. Peace beyond human understanding. What kind of stupid statement is that? How can somebody ask me? So how do you understand it for you to be, and I was just questioning everything, but until I had my own first experience of a burning bush, I went to bed in a friend's place who had taken me up for a couple of days because I was sleeping rough at the time. And I had a satanic visitation where the devil himself, and it was like all the demons in hell, they came to attack me that night. I sweated down to my toes. I didn't understand what this was, but it was my first true experience with satanic forces, which was going to last for a couple of weeks.
Pastor Manzino, I hope you'll join us next week for the concluding part, so that our viewers will get to hear what you're doing today. Thank you very much for your time, and see you next week for the concluding parts. We're all products of our past, but we don't have to be prisoners of it. God is not limited by your past. You can still do amazing things with the rest of your life. He took Moses, a murderer, and turned him into a leader. Gideon, a coward, and turned him into a victorious hero. Rahab, a prostitute. Today, look through the lineage of Jesus. You'll see her name there. He can still do amazing things with the rest of your life. Join us next week as Pastor Manzino will tell us what God is doing in his life today and where God has taken him to and where he promises to take him to. See you next week. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Goodbye.
Nobody can hate me, I'm blessed.